now got Greg Cooper from Wirral, who's going to talk about how they're using their DFG funding. They're using their DFG discretion and some other bits and pieces as well. So over to you, Greg.
Hi there. Yeah, my name's Greg Cooper. I manage Wirral Council's Adaptation programme. Mark and Paul have asked me to come along today to talk a little bit about some of the discretionary assistance that Wirral offer. For those of you who don't know, Wirral is a metropolitan council. Some sort of key information is that there's quite a stark disparity in health and life expectancies between the east and the west of the borough. The east of the borough is some of the most deprived wards in the country, but the west, the opposite, is some extremely affluent areas. And there's quite a lot of people living with, well, there are people living longer with disabilities in general, but we've also got a high incidence of people living with multiple chronic conditions on the Wirral. And we've obviously seen, that's manifested itself in sustained increase in referrals that we've noticed over the last few years. Particularly recently, I think requests for minor adaptations of, and particularly the ones that need fabrication have gone up by 50%, which is a massive increase. The governments have obviously recognised that, and they've increased allocations. They've gone up almost threefold from what it was in 14-15 at 1.6 million, so up to 4.7. And obviously, as Paul's just said, there was a shift in government policy in 2015 and the move more towards integration with health, social care, and obviously, housing a key partner, at the table to play a role in that. And we recognised that in Wirral, and we realised that we needed to adapt and reconfigure our services in line with that. So we undertook a review of the services that we have got there, and it recommended a number of outcomes, and one of them was around innovation and delivery as we saw it at that time. I think we realised that through sort of advice that we'd received from foundations and contacting trailblazer authorities, and CLG at the time, University of West England, to sort of position ourselves. So part of that was we needed to restructure ourselves to enable us to support the sort of the work stream, the shift in the work streams as we saw it, and enabled us to sort of deal with the new types of assistance that we were thinking about bringing online. So this is a very basic diagram showing sort of where the work comes in, and we created a separate team called the Rapid Adaptations team, which focuses on the very quick turnaround jobs and all the minor works as well that we've got that are linked to hospital discharge, and the major part of the service, mopping up the sort of more substantial, complicated works. But we also realised that we needed some wraparound, sort of softer sort of services to support that, and we already had a self-assessment form route in-house, which enabled access a bit quicker, so they didn't have to join lists for social care to get assessments by OTs. And we already had, we were lucky to have housing OTs in the team. So again, it was, locking into that to continue that. But we've also looked at the client liaison officer role to sort of do a little bit more of the supportive work around helping with applications and proactive phone calls and drawing all that together, really. And I have two operations sort of managers that run those parts of the service for me, Michelle and Simon, on a sort of day-to-day basis. So we realised we need to innovate. So we knew that the aims were to sort of improve throughput through turnarounds of cases, improve the customer journey, reduce complaints, and obviously respond to the significant increases in allocation. As Paul said, the enabler, the RRO, and we had a financial assistance policy, which we needed to obviously add these things to. We were lucky in Wirral. We've had a financial assistance policy in existence before, so that was really helpful because the vehicle was already there. But there were barriers that we discovered around, fixed view, really. Not only sort of within the team and within housing, but also wider around chief officers, legal, and others in relation to the fact that the DFG was thought that it was fixed and there had to be a test of resources. So it was trying to find out a way to overcome that. And so we promoted quite an open mindset. We reached out to the likes of foundations, other authorities. I know I had a number of conversations with other managers in sort of particularly in Ealing and Wigan at the time, to sort of show me, what could be done, what they were thinking. And then that enabled us to put a compelling case together to sort of put that forward and get buy-in from all the key partners internally. Okay, next slide, please. So that's led to us having sort of some key adaptation, discretionary products really. So there's 5 there that I'll briefly mention the 3, and then the 2 in blue I'm going to go on to talk a little bit more detail. Mark and Paul wanted us to explain a little bit more around those particular ones, and we'll take it from there. So home adaptation grant. So this was our first sort of dipping our toe in the water. So that's been around for around about 5 years now. It does quite a big chunk of our adaptation scheme delivery. I think it's the highest spender within the service, and it really focuses on getting the straightforward adaptations sort of delivered as soon as we possibly can. So there's a target there of 50-day turnaround, and it covers things like stair lifts, level access showers, ramps and ceiling track hoists, but really sort of also we've got a best synergy there. We've got a lifting solutions contract, so some of the timeframes that we've put into the contract sort of link into the ask of the housing adaptation grant. And there's also no means test, and we've got a very sort of streamlined application process that Michelle, the day-to-day manager at that service, has sort of developed over those years. So it's really successful, and we're very pleased with that. Then there's a discretionary DFG top-up, which I know a lot of, most authorities have got access to that, but at Wirral it's for the bigger cases, extensions and such like that go over the 30 grand limit. So we've got the ability to top up to about by another 30 to 60 if that's required. And then there's time critical adaptation grant. So this is a newer discretionary product. So we saw that there was a need to try and do something about to support people on an end of life pathway of 2 years or less. And it also is useful it also assists with very difficult discharge cases as well. So cases where someone can't be released to discharge from a hospital or another setting. So an example of that would be someone that was in a spinal unit. I know we've got one in Southport nearby. They can't move home. So again, it's to try to speed up that process, because often in those scenarios that they're at, extremely high cost, but also that the person's stuck there, they can't get out back to their home environment. So that's something that we've been developing. So that's non-means tested, and there's a little bit of wraparound support there, because it really does try to focus on the client journey. And then there's the adaptation scheme enabling grant and the heating and renovation assistance grants, which I'll go on to talk about a bit more detail now. So the enabling grant. So this was something which we recognised that on occasion with DFG and home adaptation grant, if we had a scenario where there was disrepair in the property, then that would often stop or stall progress, because we couldn't progress the actual installation of the adaptations because of this disrepair item. So we've created this product to work alongside that. So it's non-means tested, and it's up to £10,000, but it's to enable us to roll all that up into one job to try and get that dealt with in a timely manner, rather than it being passed from here to there and it's slowing things down or it not happening at all. So this is an example of one of those cases, a case study. So as you can see from the photograph there, that's actually the ceiling of the ceiling, but above that is a bathroom. It's obviously in really poor condition. So this was actually linked to a DFG case. So there was an elderly couple in their sort of mid-80s. The gentleman had severe mobility issues. And they did have family. They were relatively isolated because the family lived I think the son lived abroad and the daughter lived in London. And the daughter had contacted us, or was a good conduit for contact with the team. The couple were owner occupiers and they'd lived in their home for many years, but over the last 5 to 10 years, I think standards had really started to deteriorate through financial hardship mostly. It was identified by the OT that access to first floor facilities was needed. So when the TO went round to do a feasibility of what was required, unfortunately he discovered serious conditions there of structural failure. Basically, I think water had been penetrating for some time and rotted the floor joists, and they become detached from the walls. And as you can see there, the floors actually partly dropped. So, a serious scenario. And I think, as you can see, I think the homeowners tried to put plastic up there to keep the moisture out from coming down the walls. So historically, this case would probably have been pushed back to colleagues in housing standards to see if there's any other financial assistance out there that they may or may not have qualified for. And we would have pushed back to the client as well to say, look, you need to look at sorting out this repair before we can put your shower in or whatever was required. So this was put forward under the new product by the officer, and it was, it was moved forward. So what did we do? So immediately we warned the clients and instructed them not to use that bathroom because they were in imminent danger. And acros were, and the local contractor was contacted and they sourced acros straight away. That's those metal props that you can see on the top photograph there to make the thing as safe as it possibly could be initially. I think OT was consulted to support the risk reduction in the meantime about using washing facilities. I think in this case, luckily the client had a downstairs toilet with a wash hand basin so that at least they could still access some strip washing and personal hygiene right by that route temporarily. And the case was raised with the management team, and obviously we agreed that this was an ideal case for ASEG funding. And as you can see there on the lower photograph, that's actually the level access shower that was put in after the event. So the enabling grant funded replacements of the floor joists, so they were structurally sound, and the associated ceiling and floor works. And the DFG element provided the stair lift, level access into the bathroom, and a level access shower in there. And I think on this one, we'd received a letter of thanks from the client's daughter, I think it was, because she was very pleased that we'd obviously done the job, and it was good to get a thank you. But the clients were over the moon. So that's obviously a real result there for the team. This next financial assistance is the heating and renovation assistance. So this is financial assistance which is normally delivered by colleagues in housing standards, and they kindly given me some of the product brief and also some case studies for me to provide with you today. In basic terms, it's an assistance that's open to mostly owner occupiers, but tenants in some circumstances, and it can be a grant up to as it says in the bottom there, up to £4,000 if it's in relation to heating improvements, and then up to £10,000 if it's smaller repairs, and then above that 10,000, the next 20,000 are approached as a loan, which would be charged against the property. So the sort of target of this is to really try and tap into the prevention agenda, hospital discharge, and obviously by default it improves housing standards across the borough. It's very much trying to pick off cases whereby it's before the person's presented to hospital, before they've had an accident, a fall in the house or some other health related thing caused by the condition of the property, and also before they've presented to OT. So it's sort of getting upstream, which is something that we're wanting to look at, and I know it's something that government are wanting us to look at. Referrals, I think they're mostly coming from healthy homes officers. We have some selective licensing schemes on the borough. I know they operate in there quite a lot. and also, you know, outside that area, obviously, social workers, CAB, councillors and MPs, and various, you know, elderly resident support groups referring in. Broad range of works from a basic boiler replacement all the way through to roof replacements. Obviously, the team don't know what's going to come through the door, so to speak. I know that they did 73 cases last year with a value of in the region of 360,000. So this is a sort of a case study, or an example of a straightforward boiler replacement. But I think the key sort of thing to mention here is it's managed to have been turned around in 15 days by the lead officer, Senior Housing Standards Officer Dave Griffiths. So I think that's a really fantastic, you know, sort of turnaround. It came into the service, I understand, as a condemned boiler, so instantly no heat and no access to hot water in the property, and it was a vulnerable elderly gentleman. So the officer had a lot of interaction. I think the person needed a bit more help with regards to forms being filled in and collected and quotes and that sort of thing. So some additional help was given on that, and quite a few home visits to facilitate it. And I think, as you can see from the second to last slide there, they managed to get the new boiler installed on the 21st of December. So that's Christmas just gone. So the family had, or the gentleman had, heating and hot water in for the Christmas period, which was really you know, something that went down really well, as you can imagine, and a really good result there, turning that around in 15 days. So this next sort of example is of a much a bigger sort of renovation approach. So this is a property that had a lot of disrepair. As you can see from those photographs, there's been water ingress, ceilings partly collapsing, bathrooms that were shot, leaking WCs, and that's a hot water cylinder that's obsolete and faulty. Property inspections were made, and defects, Cat 1 hazards and Cat 2 hazards were found. The gentleman was relatively active. He was an ex-mariner. There was a social worker assigned to him, and he didn't have the income to be able to undertake this work himself, and he needed support. I understand that there was a barrier to this, which was that there appeared to be a charge on the property, which was a barrier to the loan process. But the officer did a bit more exploratory work and contacted lenders and went the extra mile, and it was actually discovered that the charge had been paid and it had been left on the register as in error. So that was wiped from it, and then that opened the door then for us proceeding with you know, providing loan assistance. Significant defects, as you mean, I know you've seen some of the photographs there, but you know, in general, they were including damaged and missing windows, obsolete electrics, wall heaters, kitchen, bathroom, as I said, leaking toilet, rotten floorboards and joists, hot water cylinders, and they were unable to make the property safe and secure. As you can see on those two pictures there, that's the front door and the back door, and they're just, you know, open. They're not lockable or closable. Yeah, so these are some of the works once they've been delivered. So as you can see there, replacement bathroom, new cylinders, obviously new kitchen, and you know, the associated work there, plastering and what have you. And those are obviously the rear door and the front door, which, you know, are then able to be, you know, closed and locked and safe and secure in the property. So yeah, I think there was a bit more detail around the arrangement. So that the gentleman had to be out of the property while that work was going on, and the officer managed to contact an ex-mariners charity who offered then to provide some accommodation for him temporarily. And the gentleman was able to come, you know, go in there and then come out afterwards. I think it was just worth mentioning that often such cases require, you know, commitment from officers to sort of go the extra mile to find a way, you know, particularly in this case, and offer support and linkages into partners And I think those are the sort of key things to delivery. There's certainly those partner linkages, and that support that's that's available. And I think I think it's a good example of the prevention agenda as well. And I know it's something that in Wirral that we're this amongst other areas are areas that we're looking at reviewing it, maybe to grow those areas. I think as well, if the those conditions that gentleman was living in, they're offering a real risk to the clients, deterioration, because it was such wide ranging poor living conditions really, and there's a lot of those sorts of properties out there, unfortunately, as there will be in other areas as well. So yeah, so that's thanks for listening. That's my email up there, and similar to Stuart's, if anybody wants to contact me or my colleague Alan Lipscombe, who he manages the service that deliver the HRA elements of that, then by all means get in touch and we'll do our best.
Great, thank you, Greg. That was I think again kind of highlights the importance of partnership working and kind of using flexibility and discretion in terms of the funding you have to make a real difference for people. So thank you for that. And the case study was great. It was good to see pictures and kind of before and after. Really brings it to life. So I know we're running a little bit short of time. Mark, was there any other questions that you wanted to pick up on live, or any other kind of comments on Middlesbrough or Wirral that you wanted to make?
Thanks, Paul. Why don't we do the questions in one offline rather than pick through them? Because as you say, we are pushed for time. But I'll just say, two fantastic presentations, and just like exactly as you've just said, Paul, really underline a kind of, it's a mix of practical sort of can do by the individuals and in the service, but just so sort of underpinned by that fantastic partnership working, some real multi-agency working, and sort of collaborating with local partners, be they charities or voluntary groups or other parts of the sort of the local government landscape. It's just fantastic to see, and some really practical advice. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentations this afternoon.